Hello, my name is Erica Gillette, and I'm the co-founder of Science United Project. I also help coordinate the Science United Festival. I wanted to share a webinar with you today, which is titled Planning for Success, Teaching Science. These are just some pointers that I have based on my experience of developing and testing science curriculum for the refugee context. I hope that you find this helpful as you start planning for your science activities with your own students. So there are 4 steps that I would like to follow when planning and teaching an science activity to students who may be displaced. We will dive deeper into each step as we go through this webinar. The first step is to identify the interest of your students. Step 2 is to identify a science activity that is observable. Step 3 is to gather and prepare the materials that you need for your activity. And the last step, step 4, is to provide opportunities for students to collaborate and share knowledge. Step 1 is to identify the needs of your students and think about how you can connect it to the science concepts and the goals that you have for your own classroom. This is really important because we want our students to be motivated and excited to engage in learning about something that they may have some prior knowledge and experience with, so that they are intrinsically motivated to engage with the activity. So if your students like learning about weather, or like exploring nature, or like to engage in sports, you should think about how you can support these interests by developing a science activity around them. Step 2, make sure that the science activity is something that can be observed. This means that it does not require the students to have the language skills in order to understand what they are learning. In order to do this, we need to engage students in practice-based or hands-on activities. These types of activities really support our students' abilities to observe, describe, explain, and predict. Practice-based and hands-on science activities provide students the opportunity to contextualize the new vocabulary and provide them with the opportunity to acquire and apply it through the process of hypothesizing, explaining, predicting, and reflecting. Students should also be able to represent their understandings in multiple ways. For example, they can draw a picture about what they learned, they can describe what they learned in their mother language, or even write about what they learned. To support students' writing, you could even use a sentence frame. This will allow students the opportunity to incorporate some of the important vocabulary or even vocabulary that you're using in your own classroom to help them to explain their ideas. Step 3, gather and prepare materials. One of the most important parts of teaching science is being able to set expectations for the students, and safety is one of those expectations. We want to make sure that our students understand what it means to be safe, especially within the context of the activity that you are doing. So make sure that you set safety and behavior expectations at the beginning of the activity. Second, try to make sure that all the materials are prepared. This means that tape is already cut, pencils are already sharpened, and everything is ready to be distributed so that you're not doing it in the middle of the lesson. This really helps to minimize disruptions and downtime that may occur. Also, think about how you want to distribute the materials before you teach the activity. Are you going to have a student who's going to be the material manager? Are you going to distribute the materials all at once? Or are you going to distribute the materials in steps? This is definitely something that you want to think about prior to your activity. Step 4. One of the benefits that we have seen in science for students who engage in science activities is that it fosters the ability to collaborate and share knowledge. We want to make sure that we are creating an environment where collaboration is possible. First, you're going to want to identify the strengths of your students and create groups where students can use these strengths in their roles or jobs. So if you have a student who is really fluent in the second language, maybe they might be the speaker for the group. If you have someone who's a really great writer, maybe they'll record the data and write the explanation. If there's a student who is still developing in their language or writing skills, they can be the person who goes and gets and manages the materials for the activities. We also want to make sure that we provide opportunities for students to be able to share their learning in their mother language and build that knowledge together. This is important because the speaker in the group really puts together all the different members' ideas so that the response and explanation is collaborative. We know that science is not done in isolation, but rather is a collaborative effort. And really, people work together to solve problems and answer questions together. Lastly, it's important for us to recognize our roles as teacher. Our role as a teacher is not really to transmit or tell the students the knowledge, but rather to facilitate and provide for learning opportunities. This allows for students to construct the knowledge. So our role as teachers is really to be the facilitator of the learning activity. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you will be able to use some of these tricks and tips in your own classroom, but most of all, I want you to have fun. Thank you so much for joining.